Mike Stevens, narcotics detective, Orlando, Florida. Trinka Parada, director, Project GHB. Robert O'Neill, assistant U.S. attorney. Calvina Fay, executive director, Drug Free America Foundation. Dr. Eric Voth, chairman, Institute on Global Drug Policy and an addiction specialist.
So what's up, guys?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Club drugs.
Are club drugs the same as designer drugs?
Pretty much. Drugs taken mostly at clubs, but also at parties and raves, supposedly to enhance the whole sensory experience.
You mean like X?
Yeah, ecstasy.
GHB, meth, roofies.
Acid? Yeah, stuff like that.
Right now, ecstasy is the king of this 15 to 30-something group, okay, because it's relatively cheap. It's easy to get.
The most common drug we see at raves across the board is ecstasy. Ecstasy is an appealing drug because it enhances all the senses. It enhances the music, it enhances the flashing lights, it enhances your touch and feel for everything around you.
Ecstasy has always been part of the rave scene. It is the hug drug, love drug, the drug necessary to fuel the rave. Breaks down my barriers. I want to talk to you, you want to talk to me. Next thing you know, we're dancing out on the dance floor where normally we wouldn't even talk.
Besides ecstasy, we see GHB, we see ketamine, we see Xanax, all kinds of prescription drugs.
Cocaine is still widely spread. Heroin, both snortable and injectable. But what really is gaining in popularity is methamphetamine.
So what about marijuana?
A lot of kids smoke pot at clubs, but it's not really a club drug, although it could lead to using harder drugs.
Sometimes weed is used to come down.
Yeah, I heard Xanax is popular for that too.
Actually, prescription drug abuse is a lot more common now.
You know, quite often we'll find a kid will take his parents' prescription, maybe his mom has a prescription for Xanax, and he will take those pills, go to a rave club, and do those pills. That's illegal. Possession of even one pill of a controlled substance can land you in jail. It's as simple as that.
Do you guys know what whippets are?
Yet another drug that kills your brain cells.
It's nitrous oxide. You inhale it.
Yeah, I hear lots of kids mix a bunch of different kind of drugs together.
Yeah, I read about that. It's called trail mix.
Trail mix is ecstasy mixed with meth, ketamine, Viagra, and heroin to get the users addicted. It's a fact.
Polydrug use, taking more than one drug at the same time or in a combination, a series of combinations, is frightfully common, to the point they'll even just take handfuls and just throw them together, and it's called farming or trail mix, and just take a whole variety of drugs at the same time. Very disturbing because sometimes it may be stimulants and depressants, there may be multiple stimulants, multiple hallucinatory drugs, and when you add the different effects of all these drugs, it can be extremely deadly.
Isn't X also called the hug drug?
Yeah, because it makes you feel like everyone's your closest friend. It makes you want to touch and be touched.
Most designer drugs wipe out your inhibitions.
Oh, I knew this girl once. She used to be really straight, but then she started doing drugs like X, Xanax, and GHB. She was like Miss Party Girl.
Are you talking about that chick in Mr. Rankin's class?
Yeah, she's a real wreck.
Dude, that girl's really changed.
She brought a lot of the problems her own way.
Everywhere we turn today as a society, we're seeing promotions of drug use. They make it look normal, they make it look legal and acceptable, and sets very bad examples for our young people.
Raves have become, and we don't even call them raves because they've gone so mainstream now, but they've become the nexus for these groups to come together.
They're promoted as alcohol-free events while the illusion is created that they can use drugs safely, and drugs are shoved in their face.
Raves are typically hidden as alcohol-free dance parties. Don't worry, Dad, it's just a teen dance party, there's no alcohol. The illusion is no alcohol equals no problem. So very commonly they're exposed to drugs. The vast majority, from 52 to 95% of them, are on drugs during the typical rave.
If I'm selling ecstasy, what better place to find my clientele than at a rave? If I'm selling heroin, why not go to a methadone clinic where all the heroin addicts are? But if I'm selling pills and I want to do a street level sales, I can go to a rave club, and there's plenty of kids who want to buy pills that have 10, 20, 30, 40 bucks in their pocket.
When you have an event that's actually geared as a rave, whether they call it that or not, but that crowd, often you're going to have the drug dealers there. You're going to have an intense focus of drugs, as opposed to where you go to a regular dance club or a regular nightclub. You've got alcohol, you're going to have some exposure to drugs, but the intensity with which the drug dealers seek out a rave.
Rave clubs are extremely dangerous because they're promoted as being alcohol-free events. But when the young people get there, they're places where drugs are sold and made readily available and used. And we have a lot of young people who end up in the emergency room and some that end up in morgues because it's a very dangerous environment for them.
My biggest concern about raves is that the young person who doesn't really go there to do drugs, who doesn't really want to do drugs, who doesn't expect to do drugs, is going to be exposed to it, and worse yet, pressured by their peers. So you got that young person that knows better, doesn't want to do drugs, has no intention, gets there, they're surrounded by the three best friends going, come on, do it, everybody's doing it, what's the matter with you, are you just a wuss, come on, just try it.
What exactly is in the drug X?
Basically, X is a drug called MDMA.
MDMA?
Methylene dioxymethamphetamine.
Ecstasy, MDMA, is a hallucinogenic stimulant. You're not really seeing five-headed monsters, but you have altered perception, so obviously it's dangerous when you drive a car. It's dangerous when you're walking along a path you can fall because your perception is not good, your balance is not good.
So where does it come from? Who makes it?
It says here that ecstasy comes from the Netherlands, and it is made in underground labs and then smuggled into the U.S.
How can you use drugs safely when you have no idea how it was made, who made it, or how it got to you? Smugglers often put drugs in a balloon, swallow it, and catch it on the other end. It's a fact.
Nice. So how do you even know what you're taking, or if it even contains any MDMA?
See, that's the scary part. You don't. Well, this article says that there are pill testing groups that will check your pill to see if there's MDMA in it.
Yeah, but these tests only check to see if there's MDMA in your pill. And they can't tell how much, or even worse, what else is in it.
I've heard that they'll test your pill to see whether there's MDMA in there, but there's no way to test how much. So it's not some sort of safety net for the person using it.
They will sell them drug testing kits, or they will test on site, and their philosophy is that way they know they're taking ecstasy. Totally false impression.
As a narcotics agent, if I took that pill and tested it with one of the many kits that we use, and I'm trained in it, I actually have to go to a course to be certified to learn how to do it. Pill testing in that level is presumptive.
They cannot tell you exactly what's in the pill. They can only tell you certain things that are in the pill. They cannot tell you the quantities. So they can't tell you that one pill contains only 50 milligrams of ecstasy while the other pill contains 175. The pills look alike. One of them has more filler than the other. They can't tell you it also has rat poison.
If a person gives a pill to a pill tester and it turns out to have MDMA in it, and that pill tester then gives it back to the person, they're responsible for distributing a controlled substance, and under the law, federally and in most states, would be liable to prosecution for that.
So what does ecstasy look like?
They're usually little pills that have trendy logos stamped on them, like lightning bolts, doves, Smurfs, dolphins, Mickey Mouse, pink hearts, just to name a few.
Wait. So let me try to understand this. In order to enjoy a party, people have to take drugs made by some unknown freak from God knows where and with God knows what in it.
Man, that's creepy to think that people are actually pumping these poisons into their bodies.
Totally scary.
So what does X really do to your body?
Some of the long-term risks aren't known yet because the drug hasn't been around long enough.
They already know it dulls your senses and reduces your ability to experience pleasure, normal, happy things in life.
The fallout is it drains your serotonin levels, and Monday and Tuesday are not good days. And if you keep using it on a steady basis, we see some serious depression. We see young girls especially become addicted to it, end up in suicidal type of depression, end up in treatment.
First of all, the drug itself affects the neurotransmitters in the brain, and that results in the intoxicated feeling. In the normal brain, an impulse comes into a nerve cell. The neurotransmitters are liberated into what's called the synapse, in between one cell and another cell. What happens then with a drug is that the drugs come into this mix and they block a lot of the uptake of the neurotransmitters and flood the synapse with the neurotransmitter. What happens, a lot of people find they can't feel joy, they can't feel happy, they get serious depression.
They tell you, I know I lost something from this drug and I hope it's not permanent, I hope it comes back. I used to be a straight A student. I used to be able to answer questions on the board without working my math problems on paper, and now I can't do that. I know I've lost something.
Long term, it's really clear that ecstasy and related drugs have a very serious effect on the brain, very similar, in fact, to what people see with Alzheimer's.
Beyond that, it says here they can increase blood pressure, can lead to a stroke or even heart attack, fatigue, dehydration, dizziness, seizures, and even loss of consciousness.
When you add physical activity like dancing to that, people could have heat stroke and even die.
But most importantly, as a stimulant, it causes your body temperature to rise. So your body temperature heats, especially when you add to it a lot of dancing. You're dehydrating your body from the high temperature. If your temperature reaches 104, your brain starts to fry. All of your organs eventually start shutting down. You end up bleeding from every organ. You can go into violent seizures, and you die.
Ecstasy can heat your body to temperatures as high as 117 degrees. It's a fact.
What's with raves anyway?
Well, it's a business. Think about it. A promoter rents a space in a warehouse somewhere, advertises it as an alcohol-free night of dancing and hanging with your friends, then charges you an arm and a leg to get in.
Kids tell their parents they'll be in a safe, supervised environment. Then hundreds of kids just show up.
And then it's show me the money.
Yep, and then they charge them like $10 for a bottle of water, and you need it because the drugs dehydrate you.
The rave clubs have become so very, very dangerous. We've had so many young people that have been injured or died from the activities inside rave clubs that our federal government took action. They passed what's called the Rave Act.
The Rave Act is the latest attempt by Congress to legislate against those people who own properties that are being used for rave clubs.
Business people that run these rave clubs can now be held much more accountable. They can be fined up to $500,000. They can lose their license to operate their business. They can have their business assets confiscated.
Because these clubs know they can get shut down if we can show that there's a common problem with drug activity as far as sales and overdoses.
It's a way to expand those people who are going to get in trouble to not only the direct owner of the property, but those who lease the properties, other people involved in the business.
They can even serve jail time up to 20 years in prison. So there are much bigger incentives as a result of the Rave Act for business people that run these rave clubs to keep drugs out of the club.
Yeah, I've never thought about that. Drug dealers must be everywhere at raves, competing each other for sales.
And you know what that means? Drugs and money equals guns and weapons, gangs, turf wars, violence. Doesn't sound like much of a party anymore.
The more we see the gangs look at this and say, my God, here's a captive audience. Here's a drug that makes a huge profit. It's like 20 to 50 cents to make an ecstasy pill. They sell for $20, $25, $35 in some places even. Huge profit margin. You're going to see an increase in the gang involvement, and you're going to see an increase in violence.
There's always an undercurrent of violence, and it not just locked onto the rave scene, and I don't want that to be, and that's a common misconception because I don't want people to get locked in, well, if I don't go to a rave, then I'll be okay. Not necessarily. I've seen plenty of fights break out at after parties and house parties because of alcohol, drugs, and egos.
But when you get into the professional drug dealers, they're not necessarily on the drug in the first place, and they're there to sell. So there is competition, they are more likely to have weapons, and as you move up the ladder, you get into more violence. This is no different than cocaine or meth when it comes to the trafficking level.
And let's face it, you put some of these guys in a club scene, pack them in, 1,000 people strong in a room that's big enough for holding 700, everybody's getting hot, people are bumping into each other, it doesn't take a lot.
There are some raves that are violent. You're going to have some of the same things. You have trafficking problems. You have dealers that are going to get in fights. You have people that are going to get so intoxicated they get in stabbings and altercations. But generally, it's surprisingly mild, and that gives the illusion of it being okay.
There's so much stuff for sale at raves, like overpriced glow sticks, lollipops, and pacifiers.
Pacifiers?
Yeah, one of the side effects of ecstasy is grinding your teeth.
The pacifiers are because on ecstasy you grind your teeth and you have involuntary jaw locking. Anything that they can have in their mouth will help reduce that teeth grinding and jaw locking.
Don't forget nasal inhalers.
Why is that?
People like the sensation of menthol vapors while on X. Sometimes they use the inhalers, and sometimes they pass around a painter's mask with vapor rub smeared on the inside.
This is because the sensation you get from Vicks when you inhale Vicks, that's now intensified and ongoing.
So someone with a lot of this type of stuff around is probably a raver?
I'd say it's a pretty good sign.
So wait, are raves the only place you'll find designer drugs?
Actually, because of recent anti-rave type laws, we aren't seeing as many of these big commercial events, but now they're more house parties.
Someone's parents are out of town and they throw a big bash.
Well, what's wrong with getting your party on?
The thing about them is that all these losers come and bring their drugs and push them on everyone else. And lots of people who never go to a rave don't think twice about going to regular parties.
Yeah, I went to a party once, and this girl passed out on the couch and wouldn't wake up. We knew she took some kind of drug, but we weren't sure which one. So we just left her there. We were all scared to call someone because we were afraid we'd get in trouble. I didn't realize she could have died.
So you're looking at your friend thinking, oh, they're okay, they'll sleep it off, they just need to drink water, when in fact they're in trouble. A lot of people sleep off the overdose. They sleep for a few hours, they snap out of it, they're fine. Those who don't are called dead.
I will never forget working in the environment undercover in a very popular club with techno music going on, widespread use of MDMA, ketamine, so forth, and having a girl dancing, and eventually her eyes actually like rolled in her head and she fell onto the floor. And while she's laying there, which to me would be a warning sign that something might be wrong with this young lady, people continued to dance around her and actually dance over her. And one person reached into her pocket and stole her ecstasy pills. Just to watch somebody who 5 minutes ago was dancing with this person as a friend, sees the person fall, and instead of getting them aid, steals her pills from her. It kind of made me realize that all the stuff that I keep telling about, it's the vibe, it's the peace, love, unity. It's not about that at all. It's about scoring drugs.
Ecstasy dealers can sell fake pills, sometimes hormone replacement pills. Can't you feel the love? It's a fact.
One of the unfortunate paradoxes with drugs is that young people often think that this is taking control of their lives, and unfortunately the paradox here is that the use of alcohol and other drugs actually reduces one's control of their life. It reduces the ability to make appropriate decisions. It takes away cognitive and intellectual ability. It increases the risk of misbehaviors like criminal activities or sexual activities. So the great paradox is young people want freedom. Alcohol and other drugs actually remove that freedom.
So it would be a message of stay away from the drugs and stay away from the clubs. Go to places where you can have healthy activities, have fun in life without the use of drugs.
Okay, obviously the best way to deal with these drugs is not to get involved in the first place. But what if you've already started to experiment? What's the best way to break away from it?
Well, get new friends. Try hanging out with people who aren't so self-destructive.
But what if you're afraid you're already addicted?
Well, then talk to an adult, one you trust.
Also, find things to fill your time that build you up, not tear you down.
Start a journal, write a poem, learn to play the guitar.
Take up painting, audition for a show, or learn yoga.
Sports, academics, the arts. I mean, come on, there's so many good alternatives to a slow suicide of drug use.
Club Drugs and Raves, Survival Guide. Drug dealers often use fillers to increase profits, such as crushed light bulbs, flour, and baby laxative. Why risk it? Club drugs are unpredictable. Mixing them can be lethal. Don't leave it to chance. Pill testing kits only indicate the presence, not the amount of MDMA. They ignore other poisons that may be in your pill. Ecstasy use leads to depression, paranoia, vision problems, increased heart rates, and dangerously high blood pressure. Ravers have become the primary targets for drug dealers and predators. Violence and crime are now a grim reality in the rave scene. Control your own life and don't let drugs take your freedom away.